Walt Disney was a marketing genius. In 1957, he mapped out how Disney was going to continue growing and increasing revenue decades to come. Today, Ronnie Higgins, head of content at Overphone, he sees this as the mental model for creating, repurposing, and distributing content. In this Marketing Pops episode, you learn first how to escape the content hamster wheel. Second, what is the Disney synergy map and how it relates to content marketing. Third, an example of a B2B company doing this well. And fourth, Ronnie's marketing lessons from his time working in film and TV industry in Hollywood. That's pretty cool. Now, before we start, I've created a free Powerups cheat sheet that you can download, fill in, and apply Disney Growth Map to your content marketing. You can get it at marketingpowerups.com right now or find the link in the show notes and description. Are you ready? Let's go.
Marketing Power-Ups. Ready? Go! Here's your host, Rambly John.
Ronnie, I'm so excited to chat with you. Let's talk about marketing power-ups. I know we're going to be digging into this. I'm a big fan of Disney, so we're going to be talking about Disney's synergy map that is like help power up your the way you think about content. Before we do, I just want to dig into why it seems like, I don't know about you, but like SaaS companies or even tech companies have this addiction, like create more content. And while I was like putting together some questions, it's like that song from my favorite rapper, like more content, more problems, but obviously more money, more problems. But I'm curious why that, what's for us in content, we know that more content is not always better.
Yeah.
I'm curious why that is, that addiction we have creating more content, especially in the tech or even in SaaS or even in marketing. Why are we so addicted to content so much?
I think we have to go back to why content in B2B SaaS or just B2B became a thing a decade ago. Is you had a website. Your website was about your product or service, and this whole thing of search engine optimization in Google started to kind of become a thing. And you needed to be able to rank for searches that were not at that state, the bottom of the funnel or that product aware stage. So you needed a way to add more pages to increase your ranking, but it would be gratuitous to just build landing pages over and over again. And so whether I think we realized it or not, the adoption of content marketing was a way to add pages to a website to increase the keyword density and that's why SEO has become such a prominent thing, and people think content equals SEO is because we hadn't really thought about what we're supposed to be doing, and it was just about adding more pages. So at Openphone, right? An example here is, so we're rolling out a group calling feature. Well, all right. Well, we're calling it group calling. We're not going to call it three-way calling. How do we add, capture traffic from people searching three-way calling? Oh, well, let's write a blog post about group calling versus three-way calling. What's the difference? Why it matters?
Yeah.
And bam, you've captured that traffic. And I think it's that. And then maybe it's also, and this is totally an assumption, and I welcome anybody who comes from a journalism background that worked or had aspirations to work in news or magazines, is content was ephemeral. What you posted in the New York Times a week ago does not matter anymore. You're always on to the next lead, next story, or thinking about next month's issue, thinking about, if you're Sports Illustrated, the swimsuit issue. I don't know, all the different things that you're thinking about going forward. And because at the very start of content marketing, we've sort of become a magnet for journalism people who found out it wasn't a lucrative career anymore. Not like it once was. And they flocked to content marketing and brought probably that mentality there.
Interesting.
And that's totally assumptions. I've actually been fortunate enough to work for people like Margaret Jones, who pretty much was an OG content marketer at Marketo, early days of content marketing, working for Jason Miller, who had a journalism mindset, but knew that it was not just about more content, and that it was about building a library and having authority and creating, like, treating content like a product that, at Eventbrite, we saw it as not just like, oh, let's publish a bunch of content. It was, no, we're going to create a third place, a destination for event professionals to come and trust and find all the resources they need. And that led us to having a completely different mindset of creating content. And I think it also kind of ties to the Disney thing too.
We're going to dig into, you mentioned to me to check out Reforge's content around blog posts around this Disney synergy map, which we'll get to in a bit. But in that article, which I'll link in the comments, they compared how Disney, which once again we'll talk about because it's so interesting, versus like other studios at that time. And what studios did was they were searching for like all the time. So like a hit movie. And I feel like that's what you're getting at here is like, the reason maybe why we're producing so much content is we don't really understand how Google exactly works. Like we're just guessing. And we're hoping like one of them gets picked up enough that it's like number one on the list and that becomes the hit, pillar that brings in, 80 to 90% of your traffic. And I feel like that's, that's it. Like we're playing the SEO game to make them more content reach to, to really like appease the Google gods or search engine gods, essentially, is a driver of this.
I definitely agree. In fact, like, so I've been fortunate enough to work with SEO people like John Henry at Growth Plays, but I've also worked with, and I don't have their names and don't want to share names, but SEO agencies that literally just go, here's a keyword list.
Yeah.
And when you have that mentality, or maybe you don't even work with an agency and you just signed up for Ahrefs or SEMrush, you go and you look at your competitor's website and you see their ranking for this stuff, but you don't understand why, because you've focused on Google. Why did Google choose that piece? That you end up like, you have this like need to just do as much as possible to see what's going to stick, like you're saying, where I think what Disney, and maybe because they haven't had always a hit, they've had some kind of duds over the years, but they think about it as like the audience, what do we give the people? They think of their content back to what I was saying earlier. Content is a product. What is it that we can serve as a product? What's the like need? Just like when you build a product or service, you're fulfilling a job to be done. What is that job to be done, and how does it, instead of thinking about the algorithm?
That's so true. I love that you brought up job to be done. Like I tweeted once, like my heart melts whenever a marketer brings up job to be done. It's like been the most influential framework in my life. But I love how we're starting to dig into Disney a bit. What is this Disney's synergy map, and how has it like become a mental model for you in terms of content, repurposing, distribution, and how you think your philosophy essentially around content?
Yeah. All right. So for folks at home on the podcast, Romilly's going to definitely put a link to that Reforge, so you'll see this visual. But until then, I will try to paint a picture. It is essentially a back of the napkin sketch. Not literally. It's much more beautiful than any of us are going to like try and draw on the back of a napkin. But what you see at the center is the movies. So thinking of all of their Disney movies. And then you see these other nodes of theme parks, music, audio, records, and tapes. I think not even tapes. I think it was all just records then, LPs or whatever. And then there's television, commercials is another node, merch is another node, and then there's another one. Oh, books, books, and like which is not just like children's books, but coloring books and all of that stuff. And what you see is there's like, it's kind of like is it Charlie Day's character from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like doing the conspiracy theory, all the like connecting lines. It's like that, but much more beautiful and less insane. And it shows you how they have created essentially like a flywheel or a framework for when they do have a hit. How do they get, all the juice out of it? How do they make sure when they launch a hit movie, does it become part of the, how does it, become realized in the theme park? They use the characters, the storylines there. They then create a book version of the movie and coloring books. And then there's the audio book version. The music goes to CDs. The characters go to TV and, fast forward to when they were sending stuff home. So that is the Disney's synergy map. They did it in 1957. And when I found that Reforge article, found out they redid it 10 years later. I wish I've been trying to see if they've done something similar since then. It'd be really cool to find it. But I'm trying to think of how to describe like how it's like affected me. I was starting to think about this last night, knowing you were going to ask this. And essentially, when I was starting in content marketing, so actually back up. Before content marketing, worked in film and broadcasting. Before that, I went to film school. In film school, I had to take mass comm classes and a bunch of courses that helped me understand the business side. So it was content production, but I had to know like how to get money, how to market things. And I had a really, really good teacher. David Jones is his name, and he was an Imagineer. And he had shown the Disney synergy map. And I was just like blown away because like, I don't know why, like I have this knack, maybe it's my ADHD. Like when I see like something like that, it's like seeing the code in the matrix. and so fast forward, like that thing kind of faded from memory. Then I get into content marketing. It's about like 10 or so years ago. And there's not as much material as there is today on the internet to learn about this stuff. A few watering holes here and there. One of them was, so Jason Miller at LinkedIn with Margaret Jones were talking about carving up the turkey. And that was like the metaphor of it. And then NewsCred called it the content pillar approach. And I'll try and send you a link you can add in there. But there was this old ebook of like showing how you can chop up an ebook into smaller blog posts, then chop that stuff up into the social copy, email, landing page copy, like repurpose the whole ebook into a webinar. And this is all the stuff that like people talk about repurposing today was the foundation, supposed to be the foundation of it a decade ago. And people are now having this awakening over the last few years that, we should repurpose content. And so I still hadn't remembered the Disney synergy map at that point. Like I was just soaking up all of that stuff. And then basically what happened was I still was trying to learn more about content marketing. This is before I got to Eventbrite. I was still in the first like year or two. And I accidentally went down this rabbit hole on UX content strategy, thinking or not realizing that it was separate from content marketing. And it was Rachel Lovinger Razorfish at Razorfish. They created this thing called Nimble Content. I don't know if it still exists out there on the internet. And they talked about this idea of modular content and how your content is in chunks that can be repurposed, moved around, all of that. And this had so many reasons to do this, which was like just creating, like working smarter, not harder. But also this is around 2012 when the mobile web craze came. So it was like, how do you get your desktop site to be a mobile site? But it was that modular thinking that I was like, wait a minute, I know what this is. I understand this modular idea because film and television, when they go shoot a movie, they might film the last scene on day one.
Right.
And so it's all modules that get shot, and some of that stuff never makes it into the final film. I mean, you see it when you look at deleted scenes and things like that. And so this modular concept made sense to me, and I brought it early in to content marketing. And then shortly after that was when I stumbled upon, again, the Disney synergy map. And that was when this content pillar approach went from, you write a 3,000 word ebook, and because it's gated, you need to like turn that into smaller blog posts that'll rank on search, became a much bigger beast, or more complex, like code in the matrix to me, where it was, and this is actually something that if you subscribe to Devin Reed's Reader network or newsletter, he talks about content waterfalls. This is the same idea, and it was I call it like content atomization. And I think about it before I go into production the same way Disney does, is like, all right, I have this piece of content and I'm going to make it a hit. And the way I make it a hit is not by publishing just this one piece, but thinking about how that one piece will be repurposed and remixed, and then eventually like refreshed into multiple pieces. Because if you're listening to this, you're a marketer, and you know that as a marketer, the most powerful tool in your toolkit is exposure. Like, how do you like find more ways to like hammer in the message and just constantly get someone's attention? And you just need to be in multiple places at once. And the Disney synergy map and this idea of content repurposing, remixing, just sort of coalesced into this like beast of an idea of like, you can create infinite content from all these different sources. And I started to even think of the Disney synergy map when I want to say it was around like 2017, 2018 came to me, was what it helped me do was realize that when I was working on a piece of content like ebook, I would be going to customers and subject matter experts, calling them on the phone, getting on like I guess Zoom existed then, and getting all this information and sort of behind closed doors. And what that made me realize is, back to Devin Reed's content waterfalls, is I could just do an event where I get those people to ask those questions in public, and I have a polished piece of content that I can then repurpose. And then instead of me taking the ebook and chopping it up and bringing it back to video, I've already created the video. It's the event, the panel where I had a bunch of people talking about that topic and gave me the material that gets cut up and goes into the ebook. And so I started to see from an operational standpoint how that Disney synergy map worked in content marketing.
Before I continue, I want to thank the sponsor for this episode, 42 Agency. Now, when you're in scale-up growth mode and you have to hit your KPIs, the pressure is on to deliver demos and signups, and it's a lot to handle. There's demand gen, email sequences, RevOps, and more. And that's where 42 Agency, founded by my good friend Camille Rexton, can help you. They're a strategic partner that's helped B2B SaaS companies like Profit to Wall, Teamwork, Sprout Social, and HubDoc to build a predictable revenue engine. If you're looking for performance experts and creatives to solve your marketing growth problems today and help you build the foundations for the future, look no further. Visit 42agency.com to talk to a strategist right now to learn how you can build a high-efficiency revenue engine. Thank you also to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs Free Webmaster Tools. Now, if you want to rank your website higher in search engines, you have to make sure that your website doesn't have any technical SEO issues. Because if you do, that's like trying to run a race with your shoes tied together. That's how you lose, and we don't want that. Luckily, Ahrefs Free Webmaster Tools can crawl up to 5,000 pages to find 140 common technical SEO issues that could be holding your site back from generating valuable traffic. It can also help you find your strongest backlinks, as well as analyze keywords you're ranking for and see keyword search volume and ranking difficulty for each of those keywords. You can sign up for free at ahrefs.com/webmaster tools or find the link in the description and show notes. Well, let's get back to the episode. everything you just said there is like so much gold mine that you're really digging up there. And one of the things that really struck with me is like, when Disney's like investing in like, when they're gonna put $250 million in like a movie, they're not just gonna release that movie. Like you're talking about like the more investment there are, the more likely they're thinking about toy lines and like new ride so that they all kind of fuels each other, like almost like a flywheel where you might get introduced to it via a toy, but that brings you into the movie and that brings you into the ride. So
Right.
it's like it's this almost like cycle of like bring multiple entry points to this flywheel is what I'm kind of hearing with what that is.
Multiple entry points and multiple re-entry points.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
we're parents, right?
Yeah.
Where, our kid's gonna see a movie,
Right.
probably like us, watch it 100 times. Then maybe, hopefully we bring them to a Disney park. And after they go to the Disney park, they might have not watched the movie in a long time and reconnect with that character or reconnect or have that experience on that ride or that breakfast. And then when they get home, they're going to go back and want to watch it. It's and I think it's in the Reforge article, but correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been a little while since I read it, but it's a synergy map. And I know synergy has like a weird word like now, like, because synergy.
Right.
But I think the way people might see it as like not a jargony, like banal platitude thing is it's like a monetization strategy because they're saying, all right, we're going to make this movie. It's going to make X amount of dollars at the box office. But that IP, that content IP is also going to make X amount of dollars at theme parks, in CDs and DVDs and streaming and merch and all those things. So it's thinking like a media company at its finest.
That's true. And I think the other thing, there's a monetization strategy there for Disney, but for companies, like this is like at the heart of marketing, like becoming top of mind for them. Like they're imagine like seeing like that Disney character everywhere. You go to the grocery, there's the cereal aisle right there. You go to the movie, you see the poster. You go to Toys R wherever you get your toys now, and it's like right there. And like that's how you win. It was like when you remain top of mind for your consumer, and they're like, "Oh, I'm in my purchasing habit now. Like, what do I buy? The one that's top of mind." Essentially.
Right.
So like that, like you're being everywhere and being prolific is like really helping you become the choice for whatever product that is, especially in B2B. It's exactly what I'm hearing
100%.
Yeah.
I recently at OpenPhone did a little internal talk about content, and I focused it on like content being a content creator because everybody wants to be a YouTuber and podcaster these days, right?
Yeah.
Not us, right? And so I focused it on that, and I said, I talked about like Mr. Beast and all these people who are making millions, but I called it the 6 keys to the content kingdom.
Okay.
And I may end up doing this publicly, TBD. If so, then you can add it back to the notes later. But the first key is forget about fame and fortune, focus on attention. And it doesn't matter like who you're competing against. Like, okay, if you're a B2B SaaS company, right? Like, let's take OpenPhone as an example.
Yeah.
Like we have other phone competitors. We compete against Verizon and AT&T because some people think getting a business phone means going down and getting a second iPhone.
Yeah.
So, but those people are not always in the, purchasing like our buyer mode. But what content can do in that mere exposure effect is it increases the amount of attention that we have and the amount of value in that relationship. That's why like the whole community thing is like followed on the coattails of content, because content literally creates community. There's a reason there's fandoms, right? Yeah. Like Disney, period. There are apparently Disney like gangs. like families who like, I don't know. I read about that and it was kind of funny because there was like there were people fighting over who could like take a picture in front of a fountain at Disney. And I was like, oh, that's sad. But,
Yeah.
anyways, like it creates fandoms. It creates like, I always see content as the like watering hole or the water cooler for a community or a fandom. And when you can do it right, and you can do it right with that sort of synergy strategy, monetization strategy, and it's that exposure. And so when someone is starting a new business and they realize, hey, I need a business phone. Hey, I got all that really good advice and, learned about, stories from other small business owners from that company Open Phone. Let me check out their thing.
That's so good. The challenge that I often hear around this is like, it's so hard to attribute. And I feel like that's missing the whole point of what for people tuning in here is that, like this stuff is sometimes unmeasurable, but like you can sense it. The attention leads to quicker buys, quicker sales cycles. And like, I'm not sure. How do you respond to that? Like, especially like lately with like the economy, people are like, hey, let's go back to direct response and just like cut off, investment and like, wait, that you're cutting yourself at the foot there and like limiting your growth essentially.
Number one, attribution is bullshit. I'm sorry. So there's this dichotomy inside of me that's attribution is bullshit. Like, and it is a spicy hot take that's not original. I mean, there's other people who say the same thing. Amanda and Rand at SparkToro talked about it a lot. But what I mean when I say it is that it's a bullshit thing to argue about. It's a bullshit thing. I'm sorry if I'm supposed to be not cursing. There's children listening.
This is an adult show. Marketers are adults.
But like, it's bullshit because like you waste so much time trying to prove it when what matters most is it's a team sport. Like, if you think about it, like the success of Marvel is not one, like everyone knows Kevin. It's weird how everyone knows who Kevin Feige is. Like no one ever knew who executive producers were. Now, like it's a name. But like, it's not him. It's a group effort. It's the marketers. It's all the people who like lift up and make that happen. The actors, the screenwriters, definitely the writers, pay the writers. We're in the middle of a strike right now. And it's the same with marketing. It's like sales does one thing, marketing does another thing. All the different parts of marketing do different things. Product does a lot of work. It is a group effort. And when I say there's a dichotomy inside of me is I'm also a ridiculous data nerd. And so for me, it's not about attribution, but being able to see the like using the measurement all the way through everywhere from like the website all the way out to your like rented properties, your social properties, your email click-through rates, your attendance rates, your registration rates, all those numbers. I think if you look at them in a silo, and if you focus on like one or two, that's where like things go wrong. But for me, I had my team build me this dashboard. We're still working on it. It's not there. Or else I'd show you like a screenshot of my dream dashboard. I might be able to sketch it out for you one day, but it's like being in the like control room of a nuclear power plant. There's all these like different things with information. But if I'm like the director of that power plant, I can stand at the console, look at everything and go, everything's good. This power plant is stable. And I can then also look at all of those data points and go, that right there, let's tweak that and we'll actually get more efficient, energy out of this plant.
Yeah.
And so that's where the dichotomy is like attribution is saying that one metric is what, or that one thing, that one touch point is what did it. But I mean, the whole reason, back to calling back your episode with Brendan Hufford, like dark social, right?
Yeah.
Word of mouth. Like no one knows what happens when, someone's starting a business. It could be they just went to some other site that mentioned open phone, that when you're starting a business but didn't link it or anything, or they were starting a business, went to some subreddit or some other like niche community that no one has ever heard of and heard of open phone as like, or VoIP. And I think what's happened is like, the reason with attribution is bullshit is that as I think like the last decade, we've been so fixated on all the digital marketing like metrics that we forgot before those existed how we measured marketing. And there's the joke of like, half of my budget gets wasted, half of it like doesn't. The problem is I don't know which half. But like there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
But I think in the post-digital world, like today, I think there's things that you can do that are substantial for measuring the effectiveness of, say, content that isn't like converting or driving like easily attributable to revenue.
Right.
So like doing a piece, like let's just pretend I'm, doing an interview or a profile on Romley John, a small business owner who just overcame the odds and built a empire in his little hometown or something like that. Like never mentions a product, never does anything, right? What's the value in that? Well, what I do is I have to, so in my advisory roles, open phone, and in my past roles is explain to the leaders that the value is not the conversion. I have content that does that.
Yeah. This
has a different job to be done. The job to be done here is, and this is another thing you can link, is go look up BuzzFeed's cultural cartography. This is something I early on in my like wanting to build a media company. I met with the bureau chief of BuzzFeed and just got him to dump all this stuff on me. And I learned about the cartography. Then it was like, oh, they've mapped out the jobs to be done for content. And most B2B SaaS companies are focused on like 2 to 3 of these like jobs to be done. And when you see it, it's like this flat graph and there's like 100 different jobs to be done. And so a story about Romley, the small business owner, is, oh, this is about helping other people connect with Romley and see themselves in it and be inspired. And it's not about selling anything. It's about, and then because they feel inspired, there's an emotional trigger that then they associate with my brand. And what's even better is in a day and age where distribution is, I'm going to just drop an F-bomb. It's hard as fuck, like really hard, like seriously hard. It's fucking impossible these days. Like when we started in this, it was like shooting fish in the barrel. It got a little bit harder. Now it's practically like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But when you do something like that, think about it compared to a case study. If I interviewed Romley about adopting open phone, why are you going to share that? Are you going to like share a case study on why you bought the camera that you bought? Maybe if like you're an influencer and you're going to get paid off the back of that, but no one's going to share a case study. But someone's going to share a story where they were the hero of the story and they got recognized, and somebody who was a way better storyteller than them made them look like a badass, made them do the I am Iron Man kind of moment. Yeah. And made them feel like invincible, and they'll share that and they'll share it a whole bunch and bring more people to the site who may end up seeing in my sidebar and by browsing my content, the stuff that brings them further and closer to a purchase decision.
I love that. You're really like talking about like there's this emotional side that we often miss with our content that, Disney gets it. Just like emotional drives, them coming to the Disney store or like going to the parks. That's why people propose at Disney parks. It's like,
Right.
who would have, who in the, I can't imagine Walt Disney planning like, oh, one day people will be proposing to their life partner, one of her parks.
I want to think that the more
probably-
he studied Disney, I would not doubt that he
was thinking about that.
thought that.
Probably
Yeah.
not. You're probably right there. I love that. You're really driving into the emotion there. We've been talking a lot about this synergy map. I'm sure you've applied it quite a few times in your advisory role at OpenPhone, everywhere else that you probably worked at. Is there an example that you can share to the folks that I can link in the description as well, that kind of shows like how you've kind of applied this map or this flow or process or thinking momentum model?
Don't have a great example at OpenPhone yet because OpenPhone is the smallest, like less like mature company. No, it sounds bad, like they're not mature. We're not mature. But it's Series B. I've usually joined companies that have been around 10 years or Series D or something. So I haven't been able to build out anything there. And I'm trying to think, I might not have any perfect examples here. I could probably describe stuff better.
Or maybe it's something
it's
you've
funny
seen.
because
Maybe see like in B2B SaaS or SaaS, or even like your experience at Hopin or Eventbrite, you were talking about like getting interviews or that.
Yeah, at Hopin, I would have to I'd have to go find the content, but the Hopin is actually the best example I have that I can describe. Is when I joined Hopin, we were the content teams here. All of a sudden, everyone thought we were like kind of like a service center and at putting a bunch of requests in.
Right.
And I was like, no. And it was really uncomfortable, but I'm glad we did it. It took us a few months to like kind of get people to realize, especially the events team. And the reason is like they were like tapping us for ideas about content for the event. Like they were thinking logistics and getting the right names and things like that and how to promote it. But the content of the event, they were leaning on us for. And so I used that opportunity to let them know like, hey, I have the next quarter of content published. And what we can do is constantly be looking out 3 months. So like if it were June, I'm planning August and plotting that onto the calendar and then doing that every other month or every month. And because I know in 3 months, I'm going to be doing a big meaty piece on topic X, I want you to do an event on that topic.
Yeah.
And let's go and find the right subject matter expert on the panel and throw some customers in there so they have some examples. And so what we were doing was basically looking at the content that was coming up and planning stuff ahead of time that would then get seeded into that content. Then we also did it on the flip side where, we're going to like refresh that old piece that someone wrote before I started, do an event. Like let's use that piece as the like talking point or the fodder for the event, get people to react to it, then actually go and refresh the piece. And so that's one way of thinking about it that I've done it at Hopin. And then there's like so many other different ways to do it where you might even just do the social post to like test stuff out, like name dropping again. Amanda Natividad is a proponent of this, of where test everything out on social. Right now we're recording at the end of May, and if you've been paying attention to my Twitter, I'm asking some questions about the influence of media. Well, I'm purposely testing out some questions for an interview for a podcast that I'm going to start.
I like it.
And so, but then you build all of that to then work it in. And then there's like the merch. So like that podcast idea, I have a tagline that, maybe not a tagline for the show, but I have this idea for if it gets popular, I can sell a piece of merch that has like an element of the name of it in it. I don't want to
I
give it
understand.
away right
That's
now.
funny.
But
Yeah.
you're laughing because I already told you. But the idea is that like I'm thinking of how to increase the footprint of this content IP. I'm also looking to increase the footprint of the topic authority. So it's not just one or two blog posts or an ebook. It is like multiple touch points so that it doesn't look, because think about it, right? Like if anybody comes up to you and says they, share some expertise, cool, you learned it. Months later, you probably forgot it, or weeks later, you probably forgot it. But if that person's constantly showing up saying the same thing or in the same vein or in the same area, you start to go, oh, that person knows something. And so it's about approaching content that way and using that synergy map to understand that you can increase like your footprint and also feed into different consumption preferences. So some people might want to read something. Some people might want to watch something. Here's another one that we're doing at OpenPhone is we're taking a long form blog post and we're doing a too long didn't read video.
I like that.
And then we'll put those on YouTube, then embed it back into the post is something that we're about to start doing.
That's so good. I love those examples. I've also seen where like, turning their articles into like audio on a podcast so that people don't want to read, they can listen to it. Super cool. One thing that I heard here that, I feel like maybe not a lot of people think about is like you mapped out the content for the next quarter and you're like, okay, we're doing an event. How can we fit that event so that they both work together? Synergy. They're synergizing. This is the most time I've ever said synergy in a long time, but like they're working together to like support a bigger story around this topic. So,
which is why attribution's bullshit. Was it the event or the piece of content, like the written content? Who knows? Like,
so good.
And then, what I used to do at Udemy too, another example is kind of back to the movie example where like deleted scenes and stuff like that. We were creating these ebooks that had a ton of research and a lot of like material gathered that ended up not in the ebook.
Yeah.
And we're very sales led over there on the B2B side. And so what I would do is create like a guide, like you have for, when you have a book read club and there's like a facilitator to like talk about a guide to talk about the book and has like other sources to like look at and reference. We'd put all of that into a doc. So it'd be a too long didn't read explanation of the ebook. And then it'd be all these other related pieces of content. So then when sales saw that in their Marketo, we're able to see like, oh, Romley downloaded that ebook. Let me engage with them about it. And instead of saying, oh, you read that ebook and being creepy or something like that, it'd be like, hey, like just wanted to share this article with you. I think that, you'll find interesting and it'll just be about that same topic. So they feel like, oh, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about and knows about something that I care about or am interested in. That's cool. So, yeah.
I love that. That's such a good example as well. Using like content now to not just for like at the front end, but enabling sales and helping them like reach out. So thank you for sharing this. I actually want to shift gears and talk about career power-ups. Now you mentioned you started your career in film and TV industry and you moved to content marketing. You worked at some like really well-known companies like Eventbrite, Hopin, Udemy, and now you're with OpenPhone. Curious, what's like a power-up that's helped you in your career? And it could be something like networking or like talking to people and just chatting, or it could be something more of like a marketing skill. But I'm curious, what's a power-up that's helped you in your career?
So kind of going back to this like media and media company thing. So everyone talks about building a media company, thinking like a media company. And if there's one power up as like content becomes multimedia that has served me well is reading, learning about, and deeply understanding Marshall McLuhan's medium. The medium is the message. So in the 1960s, I believe it was, maybe 70s, he blew everyone's mind with this media theory that the medium in which the message is being delivered is as, if not more important than the content of the message. And it boils down to that the different mediums and the different genres have their strengths and weaknesses and purposes. And what we see now, and why I love your podcast, by the way, and you might be doing this without realizing it, is you actually understand the medium better than most B2B SaaS podcasters. Most of them are talking heads, talking shop. And they think all I have to do is book a name, get them on a call, and talk shop. And then they ask some question that sometimes is like just ridiculous. Jay Kunze recently talked about this, and like someone asking him about the like ROI of storytelling. And he's like, I don't even understand that question. So like you really, like, obviously that person did not do any research on Jay Kunze, or they would have known that that was kind of a silly question. But with Marshall McLuhan and like the medium as a message, you understand that like, oh, when I'm reading something written, like a blog post or an ebook, and I realize I've lost track or got distracted, it's easy for me to scan, like flip back the page or scroll up to find where I got lost, get back on track and continue. It is really hard to do that on video.
That's true.
It is practically impossible to do that on audio.
Yeah.
Like unless like some way you're looking at like a sound wave and you can tell where something was being said, which most people can't do, like it's impossible. And that's a weakness. So that's why like, Jay Kunze had recommended, and thankfully he did, because it reminded me of a lot of stuff I learned in film school, a book called Out on the Wire, which helped me understand like, oh, in audio, like you need signposting. You need to be able to say like, oh, well, Ronnie just said all this stuff and you're doing it, by the way. You're like, oh, I heard you say this. Here's what I understood. And it makes sure that people listening to the podcast have caught up, they're understanding, they're not lost. Because the second you lose them, they're going to like go, oh, well, it's too much effort to figure out where I last was like paying attention. And so you lost them. They won't finish the episode. And so I think that's the power up is as we move into multimedia, I think people marketers need to learn more about theory. And I would say start with the medium is the message.
I love that. I'm going to check that out. Also Out on the Wire. I'm going to go buy that right after this. I'll link that in the comments as well. But there's so much stuff I'm learning from this. One final question. If you can just give an advice to a younger version of Ronnie, maybe he's starting out in content marketing, or maybe he's like just graduated from film school. You decide when the message gets through. What would be an advice you'd give a younger version of you?
It's funny. I had an idea knowing that you would ask, because you asked this question. Was originally going to say like, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but I think I wouldn't be here if I were afraid to make mistakes, and I'd probably be like, well, what are you talking about? If I was going back to myself at the beginning of my career, whether it was film or content marketing, it would be trust in people and build a network, because the bigger my network has gotten, the more I've learned more from my network and gained more value from my network of like people who I consider friends than anything else. Like my whole career is what it is today because I've met, built, and nurtured relationships with people. And I would tell my younger self that is like more valuable than even work performance sometimes.
I chatted with somebody else, Claire Solentrop, and she said one of her power-ups is like being kind to people. And like, you don't know when it comes back. And it's so true, right? Being friends with folks and just like really caring about people. There's no ROI on that. Just like that storytelling, but it does come back around for sure. I love that.
It's one of those things that you see and you can connect the dots. It's like Steve Jobs said, like you can look back and see how it did it, but it's not going to be immediate. You know, there's people who I My whole advising career started with Jaleh Bishrat, the former CMO of Eventbrite. She had been gone. I hadn't talked to her in years, maybe a couple of years or so. And I got laid off at Eventbrite and I got a call. Okay, answer the call. What's up, Jaleh? I want to introduce you to my VC.
What?
She had just started a company. And so the company, the venture capital firm that had backed her or invested in her, she wanted to introduce me to. That led to advising all of these seed, Series A startups and being able to increase, it's almost like having multiple jobs and trying multiple strategies over a short period of time. I've built a organic content engine with 0 SEO and proved that you don't need SEO.
So good.
How often do you get to do that? You might get one shot at it if you're doing it in-house, but from an advisory role was able to do it while also helping another person invest in SEO.
I had such a fun chat with Ronnie. I feel like I can really relate with creatives and creators like Ronnie so well. You can find out more about Ronnie's work by following him on LinkedIn and Twitter. You'll also find those links in the show notes and description. Thanks to Ronnie for being on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, you'd love the Marketing Powerups newsletter. I share the actionable takeaways and break down the frameworks of world-class marketers. You can go to marketingpowerups.com to subscribe and you'll instantly unlock the 3 best frameworks that top marketers use to hit their KPIs consistently and wow their colleagues. I want to say thank you to you for listening, and please like and follow Marketing Powerups on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you feel extra generous, kindly leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a comment on YouTube. It goes a long way in others finding out about Marketing Powerups. Thanks to Mary Sullivan for creating the artwork and design, and thank you to Faisal Kaigo for editing the intro video. And of course, thank you for listening. That's all for now. Have a powered up day.
Marketing Power-Ups. Until the next episode,